Hey, it's Monolito. I got Glenfiddich 12, and I'm going to tell you about what started my whiskey journey. Welcome. Glad you stopped by to watch another video. It's Wednesday. I'm sipping whiskey, Glenfiddich 12. I'm also going to talk about how I started my whiskey journey, and in fact, Glenfiddich 12 is the first whiskey, or not the first whiskey, sorry, the first scotch that I've ever had. So I have had it sitting here for about 10 or 15 minutes, opening up. Got my Scotch Test Dummies Glencairn, and figured I'd go ahead and just stick with the theme and use their coin as the topper. So just a little brief information about Glenfiddich 12. Obviously the age statement, 12 years old. The way it's worded is that it's matured for 12 years, and it's in American bourbon casks and Spanish sherry casks. The ABV is 40%, 80 proof. It is chill filtered, and they do add coloring, the caramel coloring, for consistency in the color. So in case you didn't know, Glenfiddich is probably the most widely sold scotch in the world. And again, it is the first scotch that I ever had. It's a nice presentation. You can see the bottle, a nice green bottle. The can is green. I also like how they're different in the shape of their bottle. They've got that triangular shape, so that's pretty unique. I haven't seen any other bottles like that. There's a bunch of different brands that do different types of bottles, but I just kind of like that. I'm not going to do extensive nosing and tasting because really I just want to talk about what started me in whiskey. But I will give you some notes just as I'm sipping on it, talking. One thing I also like to do, which I don't know if you guys have the coins, but for some reason it leaves a scent on the coin. It's actually really nice. So I've just kind of gotten into the habit where I'll pick up the coin, I'll take a little whiff of the coin, and then I'll go into the whiskey. So again, this is not today being my first time having it, but about 4 years ago is the first time I've had Glenfiddich 12, and it was the first scotch. And what got me into it is one of the guys that I was shooting with, his name is Frank. We friended each other on Facebook, and this again was like 4 or 5 years ago, somewhere in that time frame. I'm not 100% sure the exact date and so on, but we friended each other on Facebook, and I really didn't pay too much attention to his posts. And then all of a sudden I started seeing every Saturday he would make this post called Single Malt Saturday, and in the post he would describe what he was drinking. It might be a Glenfiddich or a Glenmoray, or whatever scotch he happened to be drinking at that time. And then he would end the post with slancha. But when at the time I was wondering, what the heck does slaint mean? Slainty, like what does that mean? So I had to look it up. Found out, it's basically a type of cheers, and it's not pronounced slaint or slainty. So that's really what got me into whiskey. So the first thing I did is I went to the liquor store. I went down the whiskey aisle, and I saw, at the time I didn't know bourbon was a whiskey. I didn't know there was rye whiskeys and Japanese whiskeys and Irish whiskeys. To me, whiskey was just some brown liquor that, in the Western movies, a cowboy would go in and ask for a shot, and he'd slam it down, and that's the end of it. And they always made a funny face like it didn't taste good. So I never associated whiskey with something that tasted good or smelled good or anything like that. So I was going down the aisle, and I caught an eye of the Glenfiddich. It kind of stood out to me because it was, green, and it was a weird shaped can, and it had the name, and so I was like, well, let me give that a try. Now, at the time, I didn't have Glencairn glasses. I just had rocks glasses. I didn't nose it. I didn't know anything about nosing and tasting, and I just kind of sipped on it, and I put ice in it, and I put water in it, and tried all kinds of different things. And at first, I didn't like it too much. But then, as I started doing some research, started getting into it, I started to like it, and it started tasting better to me. And I actually took the time to nose it and look for the different flavors. And it's really nice. It's light. There's a little bit of oakiness and a little bit of that grain, that maltiness. So when you smell it, it smells like a single malt. But then if you spend a little bit more time on it, and you just kind of concentrate a little bit, take deeper breaths without burning your nose, although this doesn't really have a burn, and then you start getting other flavors. Like I get red apple and a very slight hint of vanilla. So it's amazing once you start drinking whiskey. That was the same thing for me. For me, it was just like this was something you would take shots of, and now I know better that. Well, I mean, I guess you could take shots of it if it's your whiskey. You drink it how you want to drink it, but that's not how I drink anymore. It's been a long time since I drank like that. I don't drink to get drunk anymore. Now I actually enjoy what's coming out of the bottle. It's really nice. Very, I don't want to say smooth, but it's just inviting. This would be definitely something that if there was somebody that was trying to get into whiskey, this would be probably something that I would gear them towards if they've never had Scotch before. Smells really nice. Yeah, that's delicious. So it's got kind of an oak spice to it. So it's not super oily. So you can see here, color I'm not really going to get into because again they do add coloring. So they do that to just make them uniform. Just all of them will look the same. It does have a little oil to it, so it's sticking to the glass. Maybe I can focus in a little bit better. So it does stick nicely to the glass. The finish is a medium to long finish for me. I'm still tasting that oak, that spiciness. And then there's a little bit of sweetness in there. Vanilla, just a real slight vanilla sweetness. And kind of a citrus. Not an overpowering citrus, but I do get that in there. It's a really nice whiskey, and it's not very expensive. I got it, sorry about that. I got it from one of my local shops for, I want to say, right around $45. So I can't complain for a 12-year-old Scotch for $45, maybe $47. I don't quite remember. It's delicious. It smells really nice. It tastes good. This is not an advanced whiskey for someone who's been drinking whiskey for 400 years or whatever the case is. The whiskey gods, but someone starting off, and to have something in the cabinet that you have as a go-to that's always available. You can always get a bottle of Glenfiddich, whatever size you want, 750 milliliter or the 250 milliliters or even the small 50 milliliter bottles. They have little samplers and things like that. It's really an amazing whiskey. So because of that, I do want to thank Frank. I don't know if he's going to see this video or not, but sláinte to Frank for posting those Single Malt Saturday posts on Facebook, although I don't have Facebook anymore, and he may still be posting them. But it just made me curious. I was like, what is single malt? Had no idea what single malt was. I didn't know there was single malt scotch and blended scotch, and that there was even single malts in the United States. I didn't know bourbon was a whiskey. So in the last 4 or 5 years, I've really learned a lot about whiskey and really come to appreciate what the distillers do to make this amazing liquid here. And some people like to mix it. I used to do that. Used to mix drinks all the time with with soda or something like that. But now it's just, I really like to sit back. I'll nose. Sometimes I'll have a dram, and I'll be sitting with it for an hour. I'm not there to chug it or anything like that. I'll nose it. I'll taste it. I may put a few drops of water. 40%, I won't put any water in this. I usually don't put any water into anything that's under 50 ABV or 100 proof. But yeah, this is some amazing stuff. If you haven't had Glenfiddich, I would say go get a bottle. It's very affordable. It's available everywhere. I mean, I've never seen a liquor store that didn't have Glenfiddich available. And it tastes good. It's a good entry whiskey, and it's a good whiskey to keep in your cabinet, and just whenever you're feeling like a single malt and you don't want to just spend a lot of time nosing and tasting and trying to get to know it, you just sit back and sip on a little Glenfiddich. So that's about it. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Again, not really going too deep into the details on the whiskey. Just more about my journey and how it started. Thank you for watching. Again, since I'm drinking scotch and I got the scotch test dummies all around me and all that, I'm going to go ahead and say sláinte. Thank you for watching.